Richard Cohen, back in September of last year, he wrote, "The fatuous infatuation with the Constitution, particularly the 10th Amendment, is clearly the work of witches, Wiccans, and wackos. It has nothing to do with America's real problems. If taken too seriously, would cause an economic and political calamity." Hello? If not taken seriously, it causes that. I give you the evidence all around us today. The Constitution is a wonderful document. Apparently not wonderful enough, though. Quite miraculous, actually, he says, but only because it has been wisely adapted to changing times. Notice the thread of thinking, which is anti-Constitution. To adhere to the very word of its every clause hardly is respectful to the Founding Fathers. They were revolutionaries who embraced change. That's how we got here. Revolutionaries, huh? Now, folks, I explained in Liberty and Tyranny that we acknowledge there are occasions when it's difficult to discern the legitimate and preferred demarcation between the different parts and levels of government. But unlike the statist, we earnestly try to figure them out. The statist rejects them completely. You've heard what I've read to you, right? Your jaw should be hitting the floor. They pretend that they support the Constitution, but only if they can rewrite it on the fly. And, of course, we conservatives don't get to do that. Only they do. You see, it's a fixed game. What they're saying to you is they will only comply with the Constitution if the ends that they seek justifies following it. Otherwise, it's an unjust document, it's old, and it's meaningless. They don't really mean the document has to keep up with the times, since the document always keeps up with the times. What they mean is they need to be able to use that document in ways that were never intended. So I'm done reading excerpts from the preposterous cover story, Time magazine, by its managing editor, Richard Stengel, who has demonstrated himself to be an absolute moron. And yet, what he's espousing there is the manifesto of the left, which is basically the Constitution needs to stand for whatever we want to do to the country. Pretty much it. It's got to stand for a socialist economic system. It's got to stand for a massively powerful federal government. And you see where that's gotten us. Calamity. And it's hilarious to listen to these people. Well, what if we really followed the Constitution? We wouldn't have this, we wouldn't have that. They're destroying our entire country. Our economic system is under attack. Your liberties are under attack. The liberties of your children unborn, they're under attack. We have unsustainable this, unsustainable that, so say trustees and actuaries and all the rest. So they have their way, and then they complain about us. Look what would happen if we went to the Constitution. Exactly what? We'd still have our liberty, we'd still have our property, the states would still have power, localities would have power, there'd still be a federal government, it would have significant power, just not the power they're seizing. We wouldn't have a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. No, we wouldn't. Gee, think about that one. And I can go down the whole alphabet soup list. You know, several years ago I said, what's the point of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation? And some moron who used to be a talk show host, notice I said used to be, goes on one of these sites, and unfortunately people email me all this stuff, so I have to read it. He doesn't even support the FDIC. There is no FDIC. We're the FDIC. We, the taxpayers. That was just demonstrated during this depression. ERISA. He doesn't even support it. There is no ERISA. I mean, it exists in legal form. It doesn't have enough money to do anything. It's not a real insurance system. So you have to go along with the fraud. See, you have to go along with their Ponzi schemes. Meanwhile, in the private sector, they're prosecuting people for Ponzi schemes. So here's the deal. If you're a Ponzi type, just go into the government, run for office, create some kind of entitlement, promote it, then you'll be praised. So what is it that they want to do? Well, I'm not going to get into great detail about this. Let me just get into a little. What is it that the statist wants? Well, first of all, he wants you. All of you. But in the New York Slimes, almost 2 years ago now, Thomas Friedman, I think he's won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. Figures. I'm waiting for him to get a Nobel Peace Prize. He wrote in part this. Just listen to this. Watching both the health care and climate energy debates in Congress, it is hard not to draw the following conclusion. There's only one thing worse than one-party autocracy, and that's one-party democracy. In other words, the Republicans and the Democrats, which is what we have in America. One-party autocracy certainly has its drawbacks, but when it's led by a reasonably enlightened group of people, as China is today, it can also have great advantages. The one party can just impose the politically difficult but critically important policies needed to move a society forward in the 21st century. There you go. Despotism. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what they stand for. Despotism. Tyranny. All the gobbledygook. All the turning of phrases. All the twisting of history. They stand for despotism. Now, they're hoping it'll be a benevolent despotism, that we'll have very reasonable people dictating to us how to live, what to eat, where to go, how, so forth and so on. But let's make no mistake about what we're debating here. We fanatics for the Constitution, we fanatics for the Declaration of Independence, we fanatics for liberty and private property rights and about the founding, we just don't get this despotism stuff. Nothing like a good despot. He'll take good care of us. Oh, yes. We'll have our pension plans. We'll have our food stamps. We'll have... Well, what will we have exactly? Nothing. It's all illusory. What they're promoting here is usurpation. Usurpation of our society. They claim that, well, Constitution can't keep up. No, the Constitution is the defense mechanism against these people and their agenda. That's what it is. That's why they hate it. One-party autocracy. If it's led by a reasonably enlightened group of people. Thomas Friedman, big deal columnist for the New York Slimes. Time Magazine's managing editor. Pretty much the same thing. Barack Obama, transformation, pretty much the same thing. Now, enough of the history lesson, enough of these columnists. Let me tie it together. The Republican Majority Leader in the House, Eric Cantor, walked out of the debt ceiling talks today. The number 2 Republican in the Senate, John Kyle, walked out of the debt limit talks today as well. Joe Biden is demanding tax increases. Now, folks, you're as familiar as I am now with the Congressional Budget Office, and more than that, with what's going on in this society. We've had the most egregious, irresponsible explosion of government spending in human history, in all of humanity. It has left this nation the biggest debtor nation on the face of the earth. You know, they say, we're not Greece yet, we're not. I said we are the biggest debtor nation on the face of the earth. Period. Now, when we say the government's in debt, that's you and me. We pay these bills. Future generations pay these bills. If the Chinese give us loans, you and me, our children, we pay these loans. If they're printing money as they are, we have to deal with the inflation that results from that at some point, and it will, because it must. Because despite all their best efforts, they cannot control the law of economics. The laws of economics. It's not possible. That's why this is crucial. There are no or very few barriers to what they're doing. That's why it's so important that the Republicans in this meeting, should they go back, not back down. We have few opportunities left to stand up to these people. We have few opportunities left to push back. If you love your children as I do, as I love mine, if you love your country as I do, and you do, if you're a fanatic for the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, as I am, we cannot afford to lose too many more battles before we lose it all, if we haven't already. This is the truth. This is the unvarnished truth without smiley faces on it. It is crucial, in my humble opinion, that those who are pushing for this balanced budget amendment that limits the percentage of the gross domestic product that this massive government can take, that requires supermajorities to vote for tax increases, that requires the government to spend only that which it takes in, that it must pass. I salute Mike Lee. I salute Rand Paul. I salute Jim DeMint. I salute Orrin Hatch. This is one of the main reasons I'm backing Orrin Hatch for re-election. He's gotten 47 Republican senators to back this. I salute everyone who supports this. This is so crucial. And by the way, it's only the start. It's only the start. We must do much more. But we must at least do this. And if we can't succeed in getting the amendment passed in the Senate, given the makeup of the party structure and given the fact that there are some Republicans that in the end may vote the wrong way, we shall see, then we need to take charge again and win in a massive landslide in the next election. For conservatives, a conservative president, not a corporatist, not an apologist, not a cap-and-trade type. No. When you go to vote this time around, many of you understand, but those who don't, you are voting for the future of this country. You are voting so that your children live in a free society under a constitution, a righteous document. You are voting against autocracy as promoted by Thomas Friedman. You are voting against reckless, illegal behavior as supported by Richard Stengel in Time magazine. You are voting against them, and you are voting for liberty, for the rule of law, for private property rights. We proudly stand on the shoulders of our founding fathers. We proudly stand on the shoulders of the men who were in Philadelphia during that hot summer, who drafted the Constitution. The reason we are a prosperous people, the reason that we've had liberty, it's certainly up to this point, is not because of the leftists. It's not because of the big government types. It's not because of Barack Obama and Schumer and Mr. Stengel and all the rest of them. No, they would deny it to us. Look what they're doing. They're creating poverty. They're creating misery. They're destroying the very society that generations have fought to preserve, and our enemies have fought to destroy. Now, we proudly stand on the shoulders of the founding fathers. We proudly stand on the shoulders of the people who met in Philadelphia and wrote that Constitution. We proudly stand on the shoulders of the people in the state legislatures who ratified it. And we proudly stand against the left in this country who would destroy the whole damn thing. And they are actively doing it. And they're almost there. We cannot tolerate Republicans who will buckle to this force. If we vote and we lose, at least we tried. That needs to be the message to Mr. McConnell and Mr. Boehner. Stand firm. Don't buckle. Or we'll have to throw you out of office, too. And we will. In the end, we're Americans. In the end, we have a tradition as individuals. In the end, we don't give up. In the end, I hope, I pray, and I believe we will win.